Hello everyone, hope you're all safe and well. Welcome to this program, Read Your Bible Through in a Year. And today we are on day 68. And today's reading in the Old Testament, we will be reading from the book of Deuteronomy, chapters 5, 6, and 7. And in the New Testament, Gospel according to Mark, chapter 11, verses 1 through to 18. Thanks for joining us, and if you have not subscribed to this YouTube channel, please do subscribe and don't forget to click on the bell icon so you will receive reminders and notifications. And also, if this has been a blessing for you, please do share this with your friends and family so they might be blessed as well. If you have missed any of my previous days teaching and explanations, please do click on the link to the previous day's program and you will be able to listen to my previous day's teachings. Okay, let's go to today's readings. We will be reading from the book of Deuteronomy, chapters 5, 6, and 7. And as I told you, Deuteronomy is mostly discourses of Moses. The first discourse we saw, it was from chapter 1, verses 4 to chapter 4, verses 40. Now, the second discourse starts from chapter 5. So it starts from the 10 Commandments. So just to recap on that, I'm just going to my notes. The second discourse starts from chapter 5, verses 1 through to chapter 26, verses 19. So it's quite a lot, about 20 chapters. Now, it tells about what happened, God's 10 commandments. It starts with Moses summoned all Israel and said. So he talks to the Israel, the second discourse, "Hear, O Israel, the decree and the law I declare in your hearing." So he gives again about the 10 commandments, the same like as in Exodus chapter 20 verses 1 to 17 we read about the 10 commandments and we have read that. So it's the same thing, it's repeated here, and throughout that also we see in chapter 6 it continues, and I want to give you a notes here, especially from chapter 6 verses 4. It's very, very important. The Jews consider this as to be this particular to be one of the most important texts in the Old Testament. Jesus himself called this injunction in chapter 6 verses 5 the first and the greatest commandment. So it says, chapter 6 verse 6, "These commandments that I give you are upon your hearts," and everything. Okay, so and also the first commandment, Matthew chapter 22 verses 36 to 38, and also the Jews refer to Deuteronomy 6:4, that is Deuteronomy chapter 6 verses 4, as Shema, 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 which is how the first word in Hebrew text is pronounced. The word means to heed, to listen or obey. So that's what it says. "Hear, O Israel." And Moses taught this priority of belief in one God, but also means to preserve the belief. So that is a very, very important verses, like chapter 6 verses 4 onwards. It's a very important verse. As time went on, the proper understanding of the Shema and its spiritual implications were no longer grasped by the people, especially when we read the book of Zechariah. We will read that the absence of spiritual understanding became a factor in their downfall. In Hosea chapter 4:6, they rejected this, and that became the downfall, and ultimately led to deportation of Israel and exile of Judah. Okay, even if you see chapter 6 verses 13 and 16, Jesus himself quotes when during the temptation, he quotes these verses to Satan. It says 13 and 16, "Fear the Lord, do not 13, fear the Lord your God, serve him only and take your oath in his name. Do not follow other gods." Okay, so he quotes this to the Satan. There's no one, no other God. And also we get this is such a very important thing, that how important it is to obey the Lord, etc. And chapter 7, Moses reminds them about driving the nations, and continuously, chapter 7 verses 12, if you pay attention to these laws, and again in verses 7, the Lord did not set his affection on you and chose you because you were more numerous than other people, for you were the fewest, but it was because the Lord loved you and kept the oath he swore to your fathers, that he brought you out of the mighty hands and redeemed you. So it's not because they are the great nations, but they are only very, very least among the nations, but because of the oath, the Lord loved them and kept him. So that's what we read in chapters 5, 6, and 7 in Deuteronomy. I want you to read these very, very important chapters, why keeping the law of the Lord is very, very important. Now, coming to the New Testament, Gospel according to Mark, chapter 11. Now, as I told you, Mark's gospel is a very short gospel, and even within chapter 11 we see the triumph entry, whereas this triumph entry we can read in a gospel of Matthew only in chapter 21, and in Luke it is 19, John chapter 12, because John's chapter 12 we get the triumphant entry, but the Last Supper will occupy most of the chapters, the discourse of Jesus, the love of God and love of neighbor, etc. So the triumphant entry, chapter 11, so we will be reading from chapter 11 verses 1 through to 18, the triumph entry, and 1 to 11, 1 to 18. So Jesus cleans the temple. As soon as he goes there, the next day he saw them. Before that, he was very hungry. He goes to the fig tree and he finds there's no figs there. So he curses the fig tree. May no one ever eat from you again. So when they come back, he goes to the temple and he drives everyone away. My house shall be called the house of prayer for many nations. And when they, but you have made it a den of robbers. Then the chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this and began to look for him. So he didn't talk about the temple, but he was talking about himself, that if he kill, he will be raised on the third day. So that is what we read in the New Testament Gospel according to Mark. So that's all for reading today, and till I see you tomorrow, stay safe, stay blessed, and goodbye.